Well, Jennifer, I am so excited to have you here because there's so many things, there's so many very similar stories we hear from other people, but you being an environmental attorney, I think it's going to get really interesting really
Oh, there's a
fast.
lot.
Yes, yes. But why don't we start by telling me a little bit about what your area of specialty is, what really makes you tick, that kind of thing, just so we can
Sure.
let everybody know.
Um, I have wanted to be a lawyer since I was about five.
Hmm.
I've never
Wow.
wavered from that, except to
Hmm.
think like maybe an archaeologist slash lawyer.
Oh, cool.
Um, and it's because I grew up around a lot of women who were just starting their legal careers, and it was instilled in me that lawyers are here to solve people's problems.
Hmm.
And I always wanted to be in that position, to be the, smart person helping other people out. And over the course of my career, which has gone on almost 30 years now,
Hmm.
I have touched a lot of different kinds of law. I'm primarily a litigator by training
Hmm.
and a lot of what I do now. And in about 2002, I took a job with the California Attorney General's office in one of their environmental divisions.
Hmm.
I had a really steep learning curve to try to figure out what is stormwater and what are all these
Hmm.
other environmental regulations that we have. And it was a fantastic training ground because if you're the government, you really are caught between two different places. You've got the regulated community, which feels like you're being really hard on them. Everything's onerous, we're overregulated. And then
Right.
you have the environmentalists who are saying, you're not using the full extent of your power, you should be
Hmm.
doing more. And you're trying to balance these things. So since 2002, I've really had to look at everything from a different perspective
Hmm.
than somebody who just grows up on one side or the other. I've had my own firm now since 2013. And although most of our clients are people within that regulated community, sometimes we are also on the other side in a situation where we feel that the only way the laws will actually work is if people do at least try to abide by them,
Hmm.
and that there is definitely room to ensure that some people can't continue to be bad actors.
Hmm. Very good. I like the
Yep.
way you started when you say that you're 5 years old and that's what you wanted to do.
Yep.
I think that's awesome and that you're a problem solver. So I don't think I've ever heard you say that part of it before. So
I
it
don't know. I
kind
mean,
of makes me imagine, like visualize you as a kid, you know?
it's true. I mean, and I know a lot of people go to law school because they don't know what else to do, or they think, oh, I'm really good at arguing. I really do look at it from a different perspective, and truthfully, I just assumed that women became lawyers. I just
Hmm.
thought that's what they did for a profession. So it, the idea took root and it stuck.
That's awesome. That's
Hmm.
awesome. So if people who get into law, it's because they think they're good at arguing. I think all three of my kids will be attorneys. So,
Well, I have two who are very different personalities, both of whom would be fantastic lawyers. One went into the sciences, and one we have yet to see where he ends up.
hmm. What are the ages again?
I have one, my daughter, who's 23, so she's
Hmm.
an actual grown up with a job and everything, and then I have a
Nice.
19-year-old who's in school still.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good. I've got 17, 18, 20, and 42. So,
Woo!
yeah. So that explains the bags under my eyes.
You've got about every problem under the sun.
Yeah, I love it though. I wouldn't change it for the world. That's
Yeah, they're
that to
great.
me. But what I like about what you were saying too is that it's if you're a problem solver, you want to make the world a better place. So
Absolutely.
that's really cool. And the fact that you wanted to since you're 5, I think is pretty darn amazing. I'm looking at something my son drew for me. My son James, who's studying medicine now, and it says, "When I grow up, I want to be like my daddy and sell houses." He changed his mind though. Little brat.
Oh, wow.
I guess you can help save lives, whatever, whatever.
We need doctors too.
Yes, absolutely. And so we'll see. Hopefully that'll remain his passion because he's smart as can be. But listen, I would love to hear some of your dirty, nasty environmental stories. So
Hey,
what do
I
you have
thought you
for
were
me?
inviting me to talk about positive things too.
No, no, no. Unless you want to, you can do whatever you want.
That's true. Well, look, the problem is that I always like to put this in context that there's almost nothing we do in our day-to-day lives that isn't governed by an environmental law.
Hmm.
The air we breathe, where we can build things, the water we drink, what goes into our clothing and comes out
Hmm.
in the wash, all of that stuff. So it's really easy for just an everyday person, even a sophisticated everyday person, to lack an understanding of
Sure.
what all the rules are. And the rules are constantly changing, and the science that drives the rules is constantly changing.
Hmm.
So it's easy too to end up failing in that regard and not doing all the things a business or a person needs to be doing. And we like to say that there are just a lot of really good people out there who
Hmm.
end up in really bad situations when it comes to complying with environmental laws and having violations and
Hmm.
inheriting a legacy problem. So, unfortunately, because of that lack of foresight, comprehension, or just not really internalizing the struggle,
Hmm.
a lot of people don't come to us until a problem has already been created.
Hmm.
So it might be that they have already entered into a real estate transaction either right this moment or years ago without doing their due diligence.
Hmm.
Um, then a problem's discovered and they come to us, and there are very few things we can do after the fact to create a legal defense for them or to assist them. So a lot of what we do, and this is my personal hell, is
Hmm.
that I love to solve problems, and yet sometimes I'm being given an unsolvable problem. And the best
Right.
I can do is mitigate it or give somebody some advice to bring somebody else in and try to make it their problem. But
Hmm.
anyone who knows law and litigation knows that it's often not the best resort or the best option. It can
Hmm.
be costly, it can be
Right.
stressful, it can go on for a really long time. And just because you're right doesn't necessarily mean you win at the end of the day.
Correct.
So, yeah, again, that's a lot of times people are coming to us, and I wish I could wave a magic wand and tell them, I would have loved for you to have gone back in time and not done the thing that you've done,
Hmm.
but let's just try to make the best that we can out of the situation. Um, and then from my own personal perspective, I think a lot of what I can bring to that relationship is to come to it without judgment.
Hmm.
It's a bad spot. I'm not going to make it any better by telling them that they did something bad.
You
Um,
idiot.
like, oh, another one. No,
Right.
look, it happens. And to be able
Hmm.
to explain to somebody, you're not the only one this has happened to. We see it happen to a lot of people, a lot of smart, good people.
Right.
Um, and then we just bring a lot of empathy to that too, to try to figure out, okay, what is the best thing we can do for you in this situation? And that might vary from person to person. And literally, we have a client we talked to today who had started off by saying, like, slow play this, like take your time. And then today we find out he's got some things going on in his life. And now he wants us to like really speed it along. And I said,
Hmm.
okay, well, we have different tricks, different tips that we can do. And, whatever works for you in this moment is what we can do for you.
So tell us a story of something. Give us an example of something that you've gone through that you're going like, oh my God, how this could have been avoided, that kind of thing.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Hmm.
Okay. We'll give a situation where a client, we speak to a lot of people in this situation, but going back to something I was talking about beforehand, people who had a really great deal on a commercial property or an industrial property, and either it's that they're buying at a tax auction or they hear about a really big piece of property and you can't get anything like this in this location, and they leap into a transaction. Maybe there's a little bit of requesting information and relying upon
Hmm.
disclosures, but they usually haven't done due diligence, or
Right.
at least not to the level that would tell them, hey, guess what used to be on this property? And they'll sink millions of dollars into a property and find out later on down the road they've got a contaminated property on their hands. So now they may have inherited $1 million+ problem themselves,
Hmm.
and talk about going underwater on a property at that point in time. And even sophisticated buyers who think, I know all about contaminated properties. I can value them. I can work
Hmm.
around it. We have some clients for whom that ends up becoming a really big financial struggle to now deal with the government and negotiate with the government. Sometimes you're also negotiating because you've been sued by other
Hmm.
parties, and you have a property that you're not going to be able to easily sell or develop. That could have been easily avoided in most situations. Sometimes the sophisticated people, it's just a matter of not having understood the full extent of what it can mean to be in litigation. But for a lot of the other people, a simple phase one, maybe a phase two would have told them a lot of information. So
Hmm.
that's probably the most common one that we see.
It's interesting because I think that's probably there was a property when I first got into the industry that was right up against the wash, and there was this several like 50 units, and there's people that wanted to buy it, and I kept on thinking, gosh, when you go to buy this, there's no separation between the wash and this land. It's like a very rare case.
Mm,
Usually there's a big separation, like a setback. I'm going, how is this going to work? It seems like they're going to have to lose a lot of their land to create a setback, and then figure out how to convince the powers that be that it's not going to go down into the wash. And
exactly.
so it was interesting. This was like 15 years ago. So they end up selling it, and I had brought a buyer, but I got screwed at the last second.
Oh
I
no.
did. The seller, you know what he did? Instead, he goes. It's so bad. Let's call it $5 million. He said, "We're gonna get it. I got you $5 million for it." And he goes, "Great." And then so let me know if you need anything else, but let's get this done. Ends up someone else gives him like 5,000 more, and he just takes it.
Mm,
I'm like, "Why'd you do that?" He goes, "What are you talking about? It's 5,000 more." Oh my gosh, why did you
right.
do this? So turns out he sold at the right time because I drove by there because I happened to be in that neck of the woods. Still vacant. Still vacant. And the 50 units were there. They should have just left them and dolled them up. But instead, so something obviously is going on there because someone
Right.
jumped in real quick, didn't do their full due diligence. But that's how you lose your shirt. That's like it's like, yeah, you might win the lottery, but 9 times out of 10 you jump that fast, you're gonna fall.
Right. And I tell people I'm not in the business of saying no all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So even as a lawyer, even though we're supposed to be super cautious and tell you the million and one horrible things that could possibly, even to a minute extent, affect you. Um, the reality is I really look at my job as informing the clients.
Mm-hmm.
Here's our experience, here's what we see, here's what we advise in terms of whether you need more information or whether you want to go negotiate something as part of
Mm-hmm.
your transaction. But it's up to you. At the end of the day, it's a business decision. Everybody
Right.
has a different risk tolerance. Everyone has different resources if there does turn out to be a problem. And I if we in Los Angeles decided we just stopped trying to develop contaminated properties, we wouldn't be developing all that much.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to know, like, right buyer, right information, right time, to make it work.
How does it work? Because I've heard different things over the years. How does it work with let's say because normally speaking, you think if you sold a property, the buyer would do his due diligence, but you would think the seller would know if it's contaminated or not. I mean, what do they? I mean, because obviously, if it's like a gas station or a dry cleaner, there's a bunch of things. Okay, that's obvious. But I mean, does it? How often does it happen that the seller really knew and didn't say anything?
So in the situations that we see, a lot of times things have developed and developed and developed so that they no longer carry the characteristics of what they used to be. And if somebody
Oh,
didn't
okay.
go through a phase one, if there's no obvious indicators of what it used to be,
Mm-hmm.
then they truly may not know. And I just off the top of my head, I can think of two examples, both in the middle of LA. One is an office building, but it turns out there had been a service station on that property at one
Mm-hmm.
point, I don't know, 100, almost 100 years ago. Another
Uh-huh.
situation where it looks just like any two-story shop in a really cute, trendy neighborhood, but there used to be a dry cleaner on the site. So
Mm-hmm.
if you were to just walk into that transaction now and see a
Yeah, you
super
wouldn't think much.
cute, profitable, you wouldn't think about it at all. We have another client who bought a property where it was that kind of dry cleaning service where you just do your drop off and then they
Mm-hmm.
ship it someplace else. That seems like a good gamble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except that's not what it always used to be. They did used to actually do dry cleaning on the property.
By
And
the way.
so, by the way, I mean, and
Mhm.
thankfully that particular client bought it and sold it and moved on. So by the time it was determined that there was a problem, we could make the argument that they're not responsible for either creating it or for now cleaning it up. And so the agencies left us alone.
Mhm. So someone purchases a property, the seller doesn't know that there's any issue with it. And so is the seller off free and clear?
No, not necessarily. So first of all,
Ouch.
there's a
Uh,
couple of things that you just said in there that, I'll pick them apart. So
mhm.
one is this idea that obviously you're disclosing what you know or you should have known. Um, so you're not responsible for, violating that in some way. But if you're the seller, word to the wise, don't assume everything's being disclosed. If you happened to be the one who owned the property or operated on the property when that contamination occurred, then you can still be liable.
Really?
So, yeah. And so
Wow.
I know a lot of people think I'm just going to sell it as is, or, that was my grandpa's business.
Mhm.
There are still laws that would say that you are a responsible party as well.
Gosh, that would suck. You can't really
Right.
get out of litigation for less than like what, 150,000 dollars these days?
Yeah, I think it depends. Depends on what
Uh-huh.
we're talking about here. But it's expensive because these kinds of cases often go on for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because often we're not talking just about one use on the property, but maybe there was somebody next door who also had,
Mm-hmm.
some sort of business, or you're sitting on top of a groundwater plume. So everybody participated in creating that plume. But at a minimum, you're also talking about a science-based question. What was
Mm-hmm.
there? When did it get there? How bad is it? How are you going to fix it? And those are the kinds of problems that can also drive the costs pretty high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gosh.
Not to mention you have to deal with lawyers all the time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that in and of itself, right?
Right. I can't stand attorneys. What's funny is that I've met attorneys that I really was like, oh my gosh, you're such a troublemaker. You're just looking for problems. And then I've other attorneys I'm going like, thank God I know you. And so it's very different. All I can tell you is I've only been deposed a couple of times, and I swear I would have confessed to the Lindbergh kidnapping. I felt like a light was just on me. I was sitting there and the sweat was rolling down my. I'm going like,
Oh my
it's,
goodness.
it's terrible.
Well, it's because people in deposition second guess themselves as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I find the biggest problem is when people are just trying to help themselves out instead of answering a question. They think
Mm-hmm.
the more they talk, the more information they give, the sooner
Ooh,
this will all end. Don't do that.
that's a big mistake.
Don't do that. Yes.
But when I was asked to be an expert witness for years, I said no. And then finally, someone I know from our group says, what is going on with you? This pays really, really well. All you're going to do is speak, from your professional opinion from your
Exactly.
20 years of experience. And I started thinking about it more and more. And I went and I looked at the numbers and I thought, gosh, this would be great to do this like 10, 20 hours a week when I retire. That'd be, even if it's 10 hours a
Absolutely.
week, that's nice, along with whatever else we have. And so I finally went to a hypnotherapist and I said, I don't know what's going on with me, but I mean, I get so stressed. And he goes, let's talk about it. And we talked about it, got down to the root of it. And he goes, but what happened then is not what's happening now. Scott,
Oh,
this is your area of expertise. I've seen you in action. And he talks me up. I said, well, let's figure this out. So we ended up going into a meditation on it and focusing on things so that whenever I got nervous, when someone like you would want to grill me, I would, I put my hands together a little bit and just answer the question. And
absolutely.
so I said, okay, I'll do this. I got some good training now. And the first person I get hired with, and this woman, really smart, but oh God, she's hiring me and putting me through the ringer to make sure I'm ready. And I'm
Right.
going like, what are you saying? And at one point I said, I think I'm making a case for the other side. And she goes, what the fuck? You stay out of the fucking minutia. And I'm going, wait, what? No, I'm serious. If you look here, and she
But
goes,
I'm the
I,
expert. You want me on the
yes,
minutia.
I'm not hiring you to look at that. You don't know what the plan is. And I said, okay, okay, fair enough. I put my
Right.
hands together. I breathe. I hear what you're saying. I just felt like I should talk to you about that. Okay, great. So she looks at everything. Within 2 days, she gets in touch with me and the guy who brought me in and says, absolutely love you guys. You guys are great. I'm going to hire you for sure. But as of this point, we're going to take a different route. Thank you so much for. And I went like, she listened. She listened.
Yeah.
I'm going, okay, okay. So I felt really good. I felt like, okay, like I did my part.
Well, if I can like digress a little bit, I mean, when I'm bringing somebody in as an expert, I very much take the position of like, look, I'm not asking you to lie. I'm not asking you to stretch. If I have a good case,
Mm-hmm.
then I just want you to, talk about your experience, your expertise, what you see, and then let me make the legal argument from
Right.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one way that we get people who ordinarily would be defense side experts to actually testify on the plaintiff side or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, like you said, I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of lawyers only want the good, but then that doesn't allow them to serve their clients to
Right.
know if there's something that they need to be prepared for, something they need to caution their clients about.
Right. Plus, I mean, it's better to know ahead of time. In this particular case, I was thinking that I must be misunderstanding this. I
Mm,
gotta be misunderstanding this because it looks to me like this is what's going on, not this. And I thought that's going to backfire. I'm making a beautiful case for the other side. That's what I felt like. And so I did so much studying and met appraisers and talked to local experts and stuff, going, what am I missing here? What am I missing? At the end of it, I realized that no, actually, what I'm not missing something. I actually have my head wrapped around this, but I
yeah.
wanted to make sure because I was really nervous. You
Well,
know?
look, I mean, first of all, kudos to you for putting in that time and doing that homework, but also having the integrity to know if something's not sitting right with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Trying to get to the bottom of it.
Right. Let's understand it.
Lawyers and experts get bad raps because sometimes they'll stretch, like I said, or they won't
Mm.
do that kind of digging for honesty as opposed to,
Right.
oh, I'm being paid for this gig. I better say what I need to say. I don't want
Right. But
that.
that's actually what we talked about with my hypnotherapist. Was that I don't is that a prior situation which had nothing to do with real estate. I was saying something because I felt like my partners wanted me to say that, and inside I
Mm-hmm.
thought, I don't know, and I was seeing the other side. Not that I thought the other side was right. I just felt like there were two sides, and my partners were thinking like, fuck that. They owe us X amount. We're done.
Right.
And I'm going, but I didn't think that they were that wrong. I felt like they made a mistake. They could have done it better, but at the same time, I didn't think that. So I wasn't speaking my truth. That was my problem, and
Yeah.
so that's why I realized through talking it out that I just need to be true to myself.
Right.
I
I'll
got
tell you
I trust myself, and if I true to myself and trust myself, then I should be just fine.
so the very best witnesses I have ever had in depositions were when I used to defend firefighters
Ah.
because everything was yes, no, I don't recall. Yes. I mean, and again, with zero judgment, not worrying
Mhm.
about are they helping you out? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? It just is.
Mhm.
And if you're on the other side of that deposition, where do you go with that?
That's
You can't
what
you can't fluster them.
Well, that's what the people I talked to said, and I did a lot of research on expert witness work too. And he says, "I want you're going to answer always honestly. Obviously, I
Hmm.
wouldn't do it any other way. But you got to keep it simple. Don't open it up for more conversation." And I went, "I can definitely do that."
Right.
So the attorney's screening me, and she says, "Tell me, what do you think? 5 years ago, what was this? What was the lease value on this per month?" And I said, "Nothing." And she says, I'm sorry, what? I said, it's uninhabitable. She says, why? there's tiles that are falling down and it could have hurt someone. It's a huge liability. And she goes, are you saying this? Yes. Are you saying this? Yes. I think it's a huge liability. That's my professional opinion. And then she goes, okay, what about this? And I tell her. And it was so much power in just keeping it like that.
Yeah.
Because at
Yep.
first I would say something and she would nail me. And I'm going, damn, you're good.
Yeah. Make them do the work. That's my
Yeah,
advice. Make the lawyers do the work.
I like that. I like that. So I do have another question for you.
Oh, okay.
What kind of, do you have any charity or cause that you can share that we can shine a light on? We'd like to
Oh,
do that.
absolutely. So, I have a very long history with the California YMCA Youth and Government Program.
Youth and
It's been
government.
around.
I'm going to talk to you about that afterwards, okay?
Fantastic.
But not
Absolutely.
now because this is about you. But
Of
you and
course.
I need to talk
So,
separately about that.
the program has been around for 77 years. The motto is that democracy must be learned by every generation. And as a high school student, 15 years old, I went to my first youth and government conference as somebody who did not like to speak up, really did not like a spotlight,
Hmm.
didn't want to stretch myself and be uncomfortable in that way. And after the end of 3 years in the program, I learned to speak up, use my voice.
Love it.
I could do speeches in front of 1,000 people. I even lost an election in front of 1,000 people, and came through the other side just fine. Made a lot of friends with people from around the state who had very different backgrounds than I did. You know, kids
Hmm.
from farms, kids from hippie cities, kids from conservative places, um, and really learned to stretch and trust myself. And
Hmm.
that carried me through, even through law school, to try to speak up for other people and for what I believe in, kind of similar to what you and I are talking about here,
Hmm.
just being true to yourself and speaking your truth. So I participated as a high school student. I volunteered as an adult over the course of the last 35, 40 years in different
Hmm.
capacities.
That's great.
My kids have both done the program. My sister met her husband in the program. And between my mother, my brother-in-law, and me, we've put in 3 decades on the board of directors for that
Oh,
organization. So
that is
it's
awesome.
fantastic. And I still volunteer. And only now I'm in charge of the college students who work with the freshmen, and so
Hmm.
trying to teach them how to encourage teenagers to speak up and to be civil and to
Hmm.
have respectful disagreements and to
Hmm.
understand how government affects their lives in ways good and bad.
That is great. That's great. Um, Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to be
You are
reaching out
welcome.
from you separately from this on something that I think
Okay.
that you're going to find really interesting, and you'll know why when we talk about it. But for
Looking forward to it.
now, that wraps up our time.